Tonight is no exception. You hear from two very distinct voices. But I want to make sure that we understand also at the end of all of this, there are books for sale. So Liegh McInnis is in the back on the back table. Definitely visit. And then Jessica Care Moore is at the front table. Definitely visit. Okay? All right. So we will proceed with the program as printed.
Good evening. Welcome to the 9th Annual Albany State University Poetry Festival. Tonight we are excited to present two literary greats whose contributions to the arts have left an indelible mark on our study of language and literature. Their collateral efforts that call for a cultural revolution through arts and ideas helped bring about a movement that changed how we view art. In her Nobel lecture on literature, Toni Morrison remarked, "Make up a story. For our sake and yours, forget your name in the street. Tell us what the world has been to you in the dark places and in the light. Don't tell us what to believe, what to fear. Show us belief's wide skirt and the stitch that unravels fear's call." It is in the spirit of this telling that we are here tonight to join with one another in a celebration of voices, the many voices of the Black experience. From its beginning on slave ships to the blues of the people furthest down, to the jazz riffs of the Harlem Renaissance, to the functional relevance of the Black arts movement, to the percussive beats of hip-hop and rap. We join together in one communal voice that champions reform through love, love of self, love of community, and love of family. Albany State University is deeply honored to have, as part of our many voices reading, two very distinct voices whose art speaks directly to the needs and the aspirations of humanity as they spread messages of hope, renewal, empowerment, love, and responsibility. Tonight we are joined by two phenomenal artists whose works challenge us to consider not only the world around us, but also our place in it. Tonight, as we pause and listen, we hear Hope's great song that has taught a people to value their place within their poetic ancestries. Thank you.
Good evening. I chose my career based on love. Tonight's featured poet's remarks. I have always loved to read and write. When I learned that someone would pay me to do what I loved, it was a no-brainer. Find a path that you love, and Find a path that you love, and that will be the reward. It is through this love that tonight's poet challenges the prevailing silences surrounding the lives of many African American men and women. His work examines the swirling vortex of African American identity, culture, and personal and spiritual awakenings, articulating some of the primary issues that African Americans have faced, helping us to look more critically at our relationship with our families and communities, understanding that we cannot afford to be disconnected from them. Liegh McInnis is an instructor of English at Jackson State University, the publisher and editor of Black Magnolia's Literary Journal, a journal that examines and celebrates the social, political, and aesthetic accomplishments of African American, with an emphasis of Afro-Mississippians and Afro-Southerners. He is the author of 7 books, including 4 collections of poetry, 1 collection of short fiction, scripts, sketches, and tales of urban Mississippi, and 1 work of literary criticism. The Lyrics of a Prince, a literary look at a creative musical poet, philosopher, and storyteller. As well, he's the first runner-up of the Amiri Baraka Sonia Sanchez Poetry Award sponsored by North Carolina State A&T. His work has appeared in the Southern Quarterly, Bum Rush the Page, a Deaf Poetry Jam, Down to the Dark River, an anthology of poems on the Mississippi River, the Pierian Literary Journal, Black Gold, an anthology of black poetry, Sable, New Delta Review, The Black World Today, In Motion Magazine, Multicultural Review, A Deeper Shade, New Law Review, Chicken Bones, Oxford American, Journal of Ethnic American Literature, BK Nation, Red Ochre Lit, and Brick Street Press Anthology. In January of 2009, C.U. Liegh, along with 8 other poets, was invited by the NAACP to read in Washington, D.C. for our inaugural poetry reading celebrating the election of President Barack Obama. Tonight, we are honored to have among us one of the individuals whose art offers lessons of survival and transcendence that are models for us all. So please join me in welcoming to the 9th Annual Albany State Poetry Festival, Mr. C. Liegh McInnis.
You can't just be matter. You can't just be matter. You got to be energy. And if you feel it ain't no sense of being no spook if you ain't gonna be spooky. But the real question is, are you fertilizer or are you excrement? So I guess I'll just be spooky electric, or maybe I'll just be an electric spook. What good are poems? What good are poems? Can a poem be as effective as a 357? Can the images of a poem spray buckshot holes into the body of a greenback stuffed sheep wearing shop? Can a poem be thrown as a brick through the window of a grocery store so that we may pillage and plunder its shelves for food for the hungry? Can a poem be laid on top of a poem, be laid on top of a poem, be laid on top of a poem, be laid on top of a poem until we have built a shelter for the homeless? Can a poem be $1 million war chest or a foundation grant and be mightier than the sword? What good does a poem do a spoiled, bloated belly? Can a poem lay hands on the sick and clothe the naked? Can a poem work hoodoo on an ACT score? Can poems make a writ payment or pull it from a magician's hat? Can poems assassinate Negro turncoats who have sold their souls to racist rags? Can poems cut short the lives of serpentine superintendents who slide and suffocate African babies into Euro excrement disguised as Caucasian curriculums? Poets, poets are the African bees of political pollination, and poems are the sperms of revolution. We need poets to stop adding extra syrup and saccharin to their sonnets so to appease the pale palates of people who have not the stomach for straight no chase of truth. Can poems we need poets to stop manfully masturbating away their talents into the mental napkins of oversexed audiences. We need poets to start impregnating thoughts of black magnolias bursting through white raven cement into the minds of virgin souls who without it toiled into the reproductive process of self-aversion. Poems are the sperms of revolution. Are you making love? Are you making love to your people? Or simply fornicating away your existence? Thank you. I'm a Mississippi poet. I make no apologies about that. You can't make me shame. Yes, I walk barefoot in the mud. I've eaten watermelons. I've chopped cotton. So everything I do emanates from the fact that I'm a son of Richard Wright and Margaret Walker and Etheridge Knight, That's who I am. So this next poem is simply titled Mississippi Courage, a lighthouse to the world for Medgar, Fannie Lou, and Miss Annie Devine. Courage is a lighthouse guiding ships to salvation. Courage is the fire that burns down the dead weeds of racism that rise to suffocate the voices of liberty. Courage is the antibiotic that kills the bacteria of hatred. Courage was the nucleus of the Mississippi Trinity, 3 lamps full of freedom oil that shine the path to dirt and gravel roads of liberation, and insurance salesman, a sharecropper, and a teacher. 3 instructors of liberation teaching that righteous knees only bow before God, and that the children of God have an unyielding organic duty to protect the meek like umbrellas, shielding us from the acid showers of colonialism, or overcoats shielding us from the frozen winds of prejudice. 3 bucking broncos railing against pale cowboys who lurked in the dark of the night, armed with the silver bullets of white supremacy. 3 lambs of justice who boldly walked into the snake pit of the South, into the lion's den of America, to snatch their freedom from Ross Nebuchadnezzar Barnett, Pharaoh Billboard, and his sidewinding salamandering scribes, the Jackson Daily News, an insurance salesman, a sharecropper, and a teacher. See, they bore the cross of change. They were the fertile soil in which we planted our seeds of hope as they petitioned us to invest the collateral of our talents into the mutual fund of the movement. That's why we must be tired of paper tiger intellectuals and playboy revolutionaries who care more about their Cadillac payments than the tilling of soil of ebony education, as they are standing on the backs and trampling the fruits of Medgar, Fannie Lou, and Miss Annie Devine. See, these 3 days midwife and nurtured the germination of a movement which caused the rippling of flowers and trees, sprouting through the winter of racism into the spring of transformation. Like Shaka, they were the pounding tom-tom heart of a militant movement. Like Jesus, they came to heal the sick, and like Muhammad, they laid down the blueprint for their people. Still, everyday people fighting for everyday concerns, speaking volumes with their actions. This Trinity shook the fibers of the universe through intellectual guerrilla warfare with the spirit of Jomo Kenyatta. They showed that leaders cannot teach people to stand as tall as mighty magnolia trees if they are themselves weeping willows, bowing on their knees to the winds of wrongdoers. See, they embraced the sword of justice and the fires of protest, becoming ministers for justice and the preachers of gospel of freedom, teaching us to be the engine of organizations rather than been plowed over by them. With very little possessions, they fought for the dispossessed, each one crying 900,000 Jubilee tears for 900,000 of right and walker citizens at the mercy of miseducated teachers and chicken-eating preachers, all the while refusing to fight the forest fire of evil with evil, believing love to be the only antidote to hate, when held with light and truth and courage is the mirror reflection of love, and no greater love than a man who would lay down his shivered cashmere coat of life for another, so that we may walk unblemished over the cesspool of struggle. His payment to be beaten, kicked, sprayed, spit, spied, lied, bombed, and turned out for his own, for a few crumbs of token position to move across the tracks into the homes that pale people abandoned to preserve the marmalade of Mississippi tradition. In the blood-stained name of emancipation, equality, and liberty, the thick sweet potato aroma and their lingering legacy demands that we heed the call to explode this corrupt cocoon into a capital of city of concrete citizens. So I don't know if I'm going to heaven or to hell, but wherever I'm going. For Mississippi, I'm going. For Mississippi, thank you. To be just and righteous in a cocoon of capitalism is to be peculiar. So what I want to say to every young person in this room, hold on to your peculiarity. To be righteous and just in a capitalistic cocoon is to be crazy. So I say to you, hold on to your insanity. Don't let nobody normalize who you are. Because the moment they can normalize you, they can co-opt you. And the moment they can co-opt you, they can colonialize you. And the moment they can colonialize you, you become their concubine. So don't let anybody take you from you. You are the only you we have. You are the only you we have. That's why this poem is simply titled, Hold On to Your Insanity. The well-dressed carnival clowns have waged war on the insane. See, it's open season on the mentally disturbed as if it is our fault that our brains are too big for our bodies, or that our creativity overcrawls the closets of our minds. Or is it that our imagination is a river that floods their dry reality? See, don't let them take your insanity away from you. Being sick It's simply a liberation from this castrated normality that surely leads to a midlife dive into the pool's deep end. It's the peculiar people. We are the children of the sun, and we didn't even ask to be planted in this dry soil. Tomorrow equates to a bucket of waste for us. See, all of my todays and yesterdays are like twins, so erase from your mind the mathematician who looked in the back of the book for the answer, cause it doesn't mean that they can solve for X or Y, which is slipping on the slipping slope of sanity. You know, like the church girl who don't know how she got dirty panties. Fantasy is the acting agent of reality. I hear you, George. They, the normal mockingbirds trying to assimilate me. Nietzsche! Are the waters muddy enough for you? Oh, yeah, brother, you went crazy. See, swimming in shallow waters will do that for you. You stayed up there too long, man. Stayed away too long. Why would you think those malignant mockingbirds could understand you anyway? What made you think that people with concrete vision could understand a man with water-flowing dreams? But don't worry, because Heidegger and Derrida, they molded and mainstreamed your jazz for you. Like a Texas Instrument modified the scientific calculator for any fool looking for the square root of zero. See, my mind is mine no matter how muddy it is, and I didn't even fill out no application to be here. They, the contracted scholars trying to put my round peg into their square ideology, they tell me to cut my hair. I tell them to grow some integrity. Damn you and the theory of consolidation, downsizing, the mainstream and 404's course you took to improve your Dow Jones value with the world. You and your Borg mentality. If resistance is futile, then I'll drink a cup of death. Jesus, can you save me with some red wine? My God, why have you left me on this rugged cross? Janie! Janie, baby, I need you. They want my inside. Can you save just one more tea cake? The insane are scared. The sane are paranoid, locked into this windowless room together. None of us want to sleep. See, my soul weighs like a falling anvil. It is dark, and I can hear the sisters on the morning board. I love the Lord, Why am I holding? Why am I holding on? Why am I holding? Why am I need some sleep with my dreams. Thank you. So, I was asked to write a poem about multiculturalism. You know, they have these racial reconciliations, and they say, well, we need you to come and, you know, you're the local poet, so we want you to do the poem on multiculturalism. I say, well, good. I got just a poem for you. It's called Black Man. Because there's nobody more multicultural than African people. It has an epigraph, which is a song titled We Can Funk by George Clinton and Prince. So that epigraph leads into the poem, and it simply says, I'm testing positive for the funk. I'll gladly pee in anybody's cup. And if your cup overflows, I'm testing positive, so I'll pee some more. I say I'm testing positive for the funk. Gladly pee in anybody's cup. And if your cup overflows, I'm testing so positive, I'll gladly pee some more. See, I apologize for putting my muddy feet on your white carpet, but my feet have become dusty from dancing in the dirt of the Delta. See, allow me to inform you, I am a man. My name is Black, but you can call me Daddy Pop because I'm father to the rainbow. I got more child nations than Skittles got colors, all birthed from the rich womb of a Kibbulan. See, even my outhouse produces flowering countries. My loins are the kaleidoscope of life. I am the prism that creates the spectrum of humanity. My black body is as fertile as the Nile Reservoir. My soul shines like the sun's atom. I was Muslim before you submitted, Christ-like before the crucifixion, and Mason before the codes. I created remedial education for Socrates. I was the one who suggested the elephant to Hannibal, the donkey to Jesus, and the Cadillac to Rev Mike. I was the one who taught Merlin that damn sleight of hand trick. Still, you call me witch doctor and call him magician. As the government works this hoodoo hell, I need some voodoo just to stay sane. If you don't think that I'm a magician, hell, check me out on Bill Day. How does 14% of a population give a whole nation so much so? If the one drop rule applies, then the complete Commonwealth has got to be colored. I was the one who did the driving and the parallel parking for Columbus. I tried to warn my Carmine brothers about smoking that pipe with Captain Smith. Nat Turner on my best day and Clarence Thomas on my worst, but hell, that still makes me supreme. B.B. King on Saturday night and MLK on Sunday morning. I'm beautiful, fiery truth of Richard Pryor and the communal wisdom of Baba Douglas and the Kango. See, I'm Frederick Douglass with a Kango slightly tilted to the side, still refusing to give up my plantation house. I'm Booker T. Washington in a red pinstripe double-breast suit with red silk socks and a pair of red Stacey Adams. I'm going to pull myself up by my wingtips and look good doing it. I'm the double talking, double consciousness of divorce. I'm the glorious steadfast rock of Garvey. I am the new Negro that shows up every 10 years. I made the peanut give birth to things that you wouldn't even believe, and I coordinated red, yellow, and green to keep white folks from running into each other. How the hell you gonna invent the cotton gin and you ain't never picked no cotton? Don't worry about it. Don't answer that. If necessity is the mother of invention, then every patent in America got to be mine. I tried to tell cuss the dumbass don't go in between them rocks. I took on wings at Tuskegee and taught America how to fly. I pumped electrifying orgasmic life into your comatose language. I'm the same brother who cut Malcolm's cup and give Reverend Sharpton his touch-up. I was the one who said, run, Jesse, run. I'm Robert Johnson, Chuck Berry, Thelonious Monk, Miles Davis, Little Richard, Jackie Robinson, James Brown, Jimi Hendrix, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and Tina Turner. Damn, that makes me Prince. Let it marinate. Above all else, I am forever here. Like a stain on the silk shirt of white supremacy, I have survived more wars and famines than a McDonald's has sold overpriced, overprocessed scam burgers. I have survived more conspiracies than an Oliver Stone movie and more cliffhangers than Dynasty, Falcon Crest, Dallas General Hospital. I guess that's why my young are so damn restless. I'm the bulging, pounding, phallic anxiety of a nation. See, you don't know if you want to emasculate me, incarcerate me, infect me, ejaculate me, but that's all right, because I can't help but touch myself when I walk. The music in my rhythm gives more bounce to my beat. I am JSU and Tougaloo, the private and public HBCU, and one day I'm going to use my education to engineer my sovereignty, but until then, I'm going to just keep punking my blues on the one. Poverty and oppression are just more opportunities for me to be great. I'm too bad to die, too proud not to live, and too funky not to enjoy it all. The only time that I ever give up my woolly-headed existence is so that y'all may have everlasting life. Thank you. All right, so I'm slow it down for one. I'm amazed at how many poems and essays I've written because former students have emailed me that I never planned to write about. But when your students, who you are challenging to challenge the world, who graduated. So a few years ago, there was a brother, James Craig Anderson, who was lynched in Mississippi. He was chained to the back of a pickup truck and dragged, and his body just ripped into pieces. And so a student emailed me. She'd graduated and gone on, and so she emailed me, and she said, well, Mr. McInnis, I have this listserv. It has a couple of thousand people on it, so my former students are on the listserv. And she said, well, Mr. McInnis, I'm just waiting on you to say something about this. And I was angry and horrified, but I just kept thinking, same thing, new day, right? And so all I could think of was the term rerun, 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 rerun. Nothing has changed. We still being lynched. We still commit 16% of the crime, but we 60% of the incarceration rate. We still got the same degrees, yet we don't get hired at the same rate. So it's just reruns, reruns. So that's all I could think of was, when are we going to get tired of watching this rerun? At what point are we, as African people, going to get tired of watching the rerun? So this poem is simply titled Rerun. For James Craig Anderson, Frederick Jermaine Carter, Billy Joe Johnson, and a former student who forced me to write this. And you're going to hear two towns, Brandon and Money. And Brandon is Brandon, Mississippi, and Money is Money, Mississippi. Because Money, Mississippi is where Emmett Till was killed. And Brandon, Mississippi is where the young white boys, and what they would do is they would come into Jackson, because Jackson, because white flight, so a lot of the white folks like to call Jackson Jafrica. And we were like, oh, you think that's an insult? We would got t-shirts. Yeah, we live in Jafrica. We don't live in Jackson. That ain't no insult, player. We appreciate y'all for the name. We didn't even think of that. But what they were doing was they were coming into the city at night looking for black people to kill. And these were high school students. So when you're going to hear me say Brandon is the child of Money, so what I'm saying is Brandon, Mississippi is the child of Money, Mississippi. So that's probably the only thing that you really would be a little foreign if you're not from there. No one really watches reruns, do they? Sanford and Son, Good Times, The Jeffersons, even The Cosby Show and A Different World. But who knew that Generation iPod would clamor for digital downloads of Birth of a Nation? It all seems that the Andy Griffith Show and the Waltons have been tape delayed. I knew it'd be hell when that first spook moved next door to the David Dukes of Hazzard in Madison County. Brandon is the child of money. Just as molasses, slow-talking, three-toothed men named Bubba, Byron D, and Bowers have been recast as pale skeleton skateboards donning Justin, Bieber and Timberlake haircuts. How come Hollywood never cast Tom Cruise as a sheet wearer, while former District Attorney Mike Moore was just too dang pretty to be, even as he sweet-talked Negro politicians into molesting black colleges of their scholarship money? Shh, don't move. It'll be over in a minute. As Confederate Haley continues to cling to his Rockwell rebel painting of the Bleach Citizens Council, turning the other cheek so as not to stain his eyes with history's remix, hell, where's Puffy when we need him? I'll take Bigger Thomas for 600, Alex, because Baldwin knows that its color is its size and that the retinas of white cops callous with the haze of hate can't see the beauty of black magnolias blossoming, while white boys ride to hip-hop raging against the machine, becoming suburban soldiers sent on silver horses to resurrect the ghost of Jim Crow, a headless horseman on the trail of progress to look for factory workers with sandpaper hands to lynch with F-250s and SUVs. They the steel cavalry of the Caucasian purity. You ever notice how black bystanders are painted as accessories while white bystanders are painted as witnesses? When do we get the chance to color the courthouse canvas? Doesn't the election of all these chocolate bodies change the coloring of justice? Is James Anderson a character in a post-racial text edited by Henry Louis Gates Jr.? Does riding in the back of a police car incinerate one's carefully hand-painted postal race card? The Tea Party ain't nothing but a throwback jersey, becoming the digital Bellum mirror reflection of the Hayes-Tilden compromise that only served to put black bodies in compromising positions, making Obama's election a watershed moment, causing the toothpick and bubblegum dam holding America's racism to bust into a waterfall of radioactive Reagan rage. In every Mississippi market, from cotton to sand, reruns of retro reality TV are all the rage. Greenwood trees still sing Holiday's strange song while night riders make Swiss cheese of a senator's home who had the nerve to take his camera and go tell it on the mountain. And Loosedale blue boys with bent and bloody badges tackle and terminate a cold-faced football player who receives flowing rivers of cheer from pasty cheerleaders. Seeds of black sovereignty lay unopened on the dusty floors of midnight mines while visions of integration still dance like spoiled sugar trump plums. I guess it's one hell of a family reunion when we hear the call of the Confederate wrapped in an American flag. Thank you. I'm gonna do two more and get out your hair. Yeah, that's cool. So, I write occasional poems. That doesn't mean I write poems occasionally, right? But you write, once you become known as the town poet, family poet, there's always some event, so people say, we need you to write a poem. So I got a call once and somebody said, Uncle Ned died. I was like, oh, wow, I kind of like Uncle Ned, Yeah, tell his children, that, I'll be at the services. He says, no, Uncle Ned died. I like, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. Now they want to know when you're gonna send the poem. They really know Uncle Ned that way, but so those of you who are writers, I like to tell people that one of my favorite poems by Dudley Randall is "A poet is not a jukebox." Right? People think that you can put a quarter in a poet and we just spit out poems, right? But there is a responsibility if you do call yourself a writer to reflect your community, because you get to kind of say things that other people don't get to say. You get certain liberties that other people don't get. So a gentleman he wanted to have a rites of passage for his son. And he asked me if I would write a poem for his son was turning 13. He said, we just don't have, for us, African-American rites of passages rituals. And so I wrote this poem, and it's simply titled Manhood. Between the first Adam and the last Adam, our clay must be sculpted by the supreme plotter, for if you are what you eat, they'd be fed by seeds of scripture and not merely by man's meat, and know that only trees planted in his soil can withstand the winds of a wicked weather. To be a man is to be the garden of God's green garden, is to be the levee refusing to break when the hurricanes of life threaten to engulf your earthly existence. Yet your strength does not come from lifting weights or doing push-ups and sit-ups. The muscles in your mind are more powerful than the rivers that run through your legs and arms and backs, and the word of God lays a foundation that cannot be cracked. For if you stand on his word, then the floods of Noah will not drown you, and his crashing economy will not take you over. For God is the anchor that is proven to be stronger than the gangrene greed of mankind. Being a leader is not about being wrapped in the phony praise of the people. Being a leader is not about cat dadding and Cadillacs chasing concubines. Being a leader is about washing the feet of the filthy and filling empty stomachs with the bread of life while making yourself a carbon copy of Jesus' blueprint. To be a protector is to cover your children with hugs and kisses while arming them with the bows and arrows of righteousness. To be a husband is to wrap your wife in the light of Jehovah, which shines more brightly than the furs and diamonds. To be a father is teaching your children how to fish while sowing in them the seeds of Solomon and self-love. To be an educator is to know that calculus was a concept created in Genesis and affirmed in Revelation. To be a man is to know that love is the only antidote to weapons of mass destruction, and that faith is facing your fears with the assurance that roses really can burst through concrete. You are a legacy of miracles. Your hands are stained with the calluses that once picked cotton can now pick cabinets. Yet even your success as a man never forgets to thank the clouds of righteous rain that fertilizes our flowers of peace and prosperity. To be a man is to be a lighthouse standing on the solemn shore. To be a tree that will not be moved, shining so that the wayward ships of mankind can be led back to the Creator. You must be a lighthouse in these desperately dark times. Let your Creator be your light bulb so that the world can be flooded with the light of truth. Thank you. All right, I'll do this one. I'll do this last one. I'll do the Mississippi poem. Yeah, I'll do that one. That's the last one. So, I travel around the country a lot. And people, they don't just ask me what's Mississippi like. It's what they do. They're like, what's Mississippi like? All right. And the tone of the question is like you could put Mars in the place of Mississippi. So like, what's Mars like? And they're waiting, right? They're waiting because, and so I was always intrigued about how could I answer that. And while simultaneously trying to answer that, I always had in my head Margaret Walker's poem, For My People. And if you've never read Margaret Walker, you must read her novel, Jubilee. Because here's why. Jubilee is the first neo-slave narrative ever published. Published before Roots, published before Toni Morrison's Beloved. Jubilee is the first neo-slave narrative. It is the one that paves the way. And what Margaret Walker does, both in her poem, For My People, and in Jubilee, and also in her collection of poetry, Prophets for a New Day, is that she reclaims common black folk. She reminds us that we survive because we are the children of the sun. And so when explaining to people what's Mississippi like, and thinking about Margaret Walker's For My People, this is what I was able to get. It was simply titled Mississippi Like. What is it to be Mississippi? Where Capitol Streets cross cotton fields and Margaret's Jubilee jams with Eudorus festivals, where there are college cuts, controversy, and the Klan with plenty of revolution, religion, red ripe tomatoes, and rebels, ruby, racist rag. Yeah, this is all my Mississippi. It's little boys putting dirt in abandoned tires and rolling them by little girls in their Sunday dresses. It's hanging out at Big Sam's juke joint on Saturday night and juking to sign me up on Sunday morning. It's picking wild berries and stealing Mr. Wilson plums. It's mowing everybody's yard because your mama said so. It's what time out means. Mama taking a break from whipping your leathery hide, and the thought of a swarming strap still causes you to wake in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. It's Ross Burnett damming the doorway of education and James Meredith bulldozing his ideology. It's the Sovereignty Commission playing hide and go seek with the lives of invisible citizens while ebony voices declare we shall not be moved under the salacious sights of rifles and German shepherds. What is it to be Mississippi? It is no matter how highbrow we get, we still have hot sauce on the table when we eat. It's having a special jawbone, being double-voiced or bilingually lingual enough to talk with two tongues. You know, a Democrat on TV and a Dixiecrat under the heel, wearing black suits in the day and white sheets at night. What is it to be Mississippi? It's cinnamon and coffee leaves hanging from faded autumn leaves, a warm Thanksgiving and a cool Christmas where rain steals center stage from the snow. And a brief frost can close a school like the notion of the ending of segregation as Southern apartheid is kept alive every Sunday morning. See, we still don't pray together even though our children can hopscotch over to Ole Miss and play together. What is it to be Mississippi? It is the peanut butter and jelly sandwich of Archie Manning and Walter Payton, where some like peanut butter more than jelly, but half a sandwich rarely fills a whole belly. What is it to be Mississippi? It is the quiet confusion that becomes too cantankerous to ignore, like, when the doctors say today is the day to stop eating cheap pork. Or when the pork politics of good old boy kickbacks become too fattening to nurture democracy. What is it to be Mississippi? It's having one street with two names so that the white folks can live on Hanging Mouse and the black folks can live on West Street until the black folks march up the street causing the Confederates to retreat to Rankin County. What is it to be Mississippi? It's being the mirror of the world with the crystal chrome reflection too bright for anybody to stare. What is it to be Mississippi? It's knowing that decency, courage, and forgiveness are not a three-piece suit that can be removed when they're no longer fashionable. Like when you say yes ma'am and no ma'am because manners are the concrete foundation of a civilization, that's the Mississippi in you. When you open the door for a woman, not as a prelude to a rendezvous, but because women are the fertile soil of our futures, that's the Mississippi in you. When a family reunion ain't nothing but a Sunday dinner, that's the Mississippi in you. Or when you send a plate over to Miss Mary's house because all of her children took the exit train north and she can't navigate the stairs like she used to, that's the Mississippi in you. Or when you go to school because education is the sledgehammer to knock holes into the walls of injustice or oppression, that's the Mississippi in you. Or when you vote, even though there are two flapjack politicians on both sides of the ballot, and the concept of a statesman ain't nothing but a mascot for Delta Stadium, you pulled the lever anyway because Mega's blood is the only registration card you need. That's the Mississippi in you. When being baptized in the blood refers to the plasma of Jesus and the crimson of the civil rights movement, that's the Mississippi in you. When you speak to people on the street whom you don't even know as you pass them, that's the Mississippi in you. Then after speaking, you say, baby, who your folks? That's the Mississippi in you. Or when you see a stranger with a familiar face and ask him, baby, are you Miss Ruthie Mae Johnson, boy who lived over the tracks under the hill, had that daughter married that Williams boy whose family used to own the store next to the sawmill inn? That's the Mississippi in you. Or when you got a whole lot of cousins and your mom and dad ain't got no brothers and sisters? That's the Mississippi in you. Or when you stand because a woman just approached your table, that's the Mississippi in you. Or when you refuse to call a woman after 10 p.m. or anything but her name, that's the Mississippi in you. And when loving your fellow man as you love yourself is your political platform and feeding little Leroy is your own social welfare program, that's the Mississippi in you. Or when you pay your bills, despite them vampire interest rates, not because you're scared of the colorless collectors, but because your granddaddy's word was as solid as the earth and your daddy's word was as true as the season, and you don't want to drive down the value of your family name by being as unreliable as the politicians promised the day after an election, that's the Mississippi in you. And when you do unto others as you would have them do unto you because it pleases God and your grandmama, that's the Mississippi in you. Y'all, good night.